The Love Your Podcast is a combination of humor, science, and real-world experience to help you break the battles with food, exercise, mindset, and your body. From head to toe, inside and out, this podcast has you covered. I'm your host and founder of the Fit Mom Revolution, Julie Stubblefield. Welcome. Hello, beautiful listeners. Welcome back to Love Your Podcast. Thanks again for tuning in this week. We are still on the compassion train, talking about compassion for yourself and why that is really the genesis to taking care of yourself, loving yourself, appreciating your body, and more. And if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, starting with 74, you're going to want to make sure you do so because these all build on each other. So backtrack just a little bit if you're just now discovering Love Your Podcast and start with episode 74. Up to this point, we've talked about how we can't just flip a switch going from really having a lot of dislike to having total adoration, and then also identifying what compassion is not and identifying where those messages may be showing up in our lives and then reducing them. And when we do so, that gives us more room for the compassion, which is the good stuff. That's the stuff that we really need and what allows us to thrive. So this week we are talking about identifying compassion in your everyday life. So we're not going to focus it on yourself, although if that's what comes up, that's great. But I want you to spend the next week looking for examples of compassion. So remember, the purest definition of compassion is wanting to end the suffering. And there are a variety of degrees, obviously, of suffering and so many different definitions of really what suffering looks and feels like. And it's also very personal. But we all have our own filters and what we perceive is suffering for someone else. And of course, what we feel is suffering for ourselves. So over the next week, I want you to look for sources of compassion. Where are you seeing it being displayed? Where does it show up? Where does it show up in your life? Where does it show up in your day-to-day adventures, at work, in your family, in relationships, in friendships, in traffic? Might be a little harder to find it in traffic, but I promise it's there. Where can you see times of people extending compassion to each other? Where have maybe you felt it being extended to you? Where have you noticed that you extend it to others? So, now that we know what compassion is not, and we know that compassion is wanting to end the suffering of someone or for someone, it's time to find it and to look for it. And it doesn't have to be towards your body. It doesn't have to be body related. I want you to just look for as much compassion as you can find. And this serves two purposes. One, I think we feel like the world has gotten very harsh, and maybe it has. But I think we've also forgotten to look for the really awesome stuff that's there. And if we're reducing the message of lack of compassion and the media that we're consuming and conversations that we're having with people, that naturally gives us more room to seek compassion and to observe it and to praise it and notice that it's there and continue on. So that's the first point of looking for the compassion, is recognizing that it's there. It's already present. It's already in existence, and it's already happening every day all around us. The other point of looking for that compassion is a reminder of what it really is. I think we often forget how it feels to even witness compassion being shown by someone else to someone else. To what those warm fuzzies are like, what that experience is. So a reminder that it's there, but also a reminder of what that experience is and how you can, pull from that experience for yourself. So over the next week, your assignment, so to speak, if you choose to accept it, is just to look for compassion. Where is it? Call it out. And kind of tuck that in your mental compartment of examples of compassion and think about the sensations that you have personally when you either witness it or participate in it. Because we're going to be recalling all of that on our next episode for a very important exercise that really will change how you think about compassion. So this is a super short episode because I want you to get out and start observing and noticing and remembering compassion. And I'll talk to you next week. Have a beautiful one.